If you have cell phones, would you please put them on silence? Also, please note that the meeting is being recorded. And as all of us must know, this past week we lost former President Jimmy Carter. So in respect to the president, if we could have a moment of silence, that would be terrific. Thank you. All right, seeing how it's 6:30, I would like to open up this public meeting of the Woburn Conservation Commission. It is January 9th, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, 2025. First on the agenda for public hearings is N-Star Electric Company, DBA Eversource. Locus is 42 Grand Street, notice of intent, DP number 34-0880, and it's the decommission of the Station 58 and the remediation. There's someone here to speak on the matter, if you would sign in. Now, identify yourself for our note taker, please.
My name is Michael Martin. I'm with TRC Environmental Corp. We're the consultants for the project.
My name is Saskia Oosting, and I work for Eversource.
So we had a site walk a couple of weeks ago. It was Jerry, Jim, Kevin, and myself. And I think the site walk was informative. So if you'd like to tell us what we have done since and what we have planned.
So since the site walk, we, as requested, we emailed Teresa some of the information. That included the release notification transmittal form that we provided to Mass DEP, as well as a list of state and federal permits we will also be seeking for this permit relative to the PCB cleanup, demolition activities, and soil remediation. So the project, as you're aware, N-Star has a former substation that's been de-energized and considered a surplus property. Back in, I want to say August, we filed an RDA to do some assessment work. We completed that assessment work between August and September, October timeframe. We identified some areas of contamination in the substation yard that's located, I want to say that's on the north side of the property within the fenced-in yard, as well as the sump in the basement. We have completed our assessment activities at this point, and we are moving forward now with the full remediation and demolition design, and that's why we're here tonight. So the plan is to demolish the existing building and structures at the site, as well as remove the contaminated soil at the site as well. As part of the demolition, that would include removing all the utilities that connect to the street, the sewer line. I think there's also a couple electrical conduits that are de-energized that we would remove, as well as there's a dry well on the northeast corner of the property that receives stormwater that would also be decommissioned as part of this process.
Any questions from the commission?
I have a couple of questions. So has the migration of any of the hazardous material, have the limits of that been determined as
Yes.
of today? They have.
Good, fully defined, yes.
Okay. And there's a mound out there, right? A pile that.
There's a surplus pile that was from the construction of the 1924 substation. So as part of that, we were going to do some exploratory test pits just to make sure that that was just clean sand that was associated when they did the cut to accommodate the new building.
Okay. And those test pits have not been.
No, that would be because we would have had to probably because that was based on the location of those and the substantial change, we probably would have needed to file a change in the permit. So that was going to be a pre-construction activity as part of the overall cleanup plan.
Okay. And you're not expecting to find any PCBs? Is it more asbestos maybe that you're?
There's potentially some building materials that could be in there, and I think that would be the only thing that would be of concern. We do not anticipate to find any PCBs out there.
Okay. And the non-traditional work plan for any asbestos removal from DEP, can that be generated prior to will that be created prior to any demolition of the building?
The non-traditional work plan typically wouldn't be required for the demolition of the building, since most abatement activities would be conducted by traditional abatement measures. So that would require just what they call an AQ 36 demolition notification. So we would just do traditional abatement for the building. The non-traditional work plan talks about when we have to, what we call bulk load asbestos. So instead of going in and maybe bagging up transite panels and just putting them in a Connex box for offsite disposal, the non-traditional work plan speaks more to the means and methods of having to dig out asbestos from the soil where there's a greater potential to generate dust. So like we know from the pad to the building, there's underground Orangeburg transmission line. So if you try to abate an Orangeburg line, it just crumbles and fall apart. So that requires, since we can't abate that using traditional means and methods, that's why we would need to do a non-traditional work plan.
Okay, thank you. Just one thing in the notice, Appendix B sort of refers to a lot of Connecticut laws. I don't know if you noticed that. I don't know what impact that's going to have on this project.
I did not notice that.
Okay. I don't know if we need it removed or, something. I don't know how, if you could take a look at that and
Yeah, I'll take a look at that.
see if it's going to change anything, any of the means and methods that you're, wanting to use here
Yeah.
on this project.
It shouldn't, but I'll double check, because I mean, the means and methods are gonna be pretty traditional relative to whether it's installing silt fences or when you do a traditional abatement, it's usually gonna be setting up perimeter monitors to monitor for dust and then having, dust suppressions, usually these large dust busters that are misting the entire work area.
Right,
But
okay.
I'll double check that and,
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
yeah.
And then the last thing that I had was, I'd like to see that bridge over the intermittent stream removed as part of the project. It's on the property.
Is it?
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it is on the property. I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
If it is, I'm happy to remove it.
Okay.
I mean, there's quite a bit of encroachment in the
Right.
back of the property.
I think that's a bridge to dump, it's possibly a bridge to get to your side and dump in there, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously it doesn't serve us a purpose.
No,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can certainly remove
We
it.
can add a note to remove the wooden bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick, on the abatement of the asbestos, what type of protections are set for that? I know you said it's not going to be yanked out of the ground, but it still gets removed?
Yeah, so, we set up what we call a regulated work area that would then say only asbestos-trained personnel could enter. Once you set up that regulated work area, you would have perimeter monitoring stations to monitor for potential fugitive fibers, asbestos fibers that would leave the site. The biggest, best management practice would be to have constant dust suppression applied, so you wouldn't generate any dust that could potentially have asbestos fibers go airborne. The other protection measures usually require a wash station for the trucks before they leave the site. There's usually also other kind of decontamination things for the workers. So the workers will have to be suited with respirators, and then at the end of the day, they would have to go through a decontamination process before they could leave that regulated area. So those are the biggest protections.
So the regulated work area, is it like a tent type of thing, or?
No, it's usually just a fence line.
Really? Okay, so
Yeah.
there is airborne things going on?
Well, that's why we implement water controls via dust suppression to, pretty much eliminate the need, that would eliminate any dust generation. So you would have constant misters going and probably also a fire hose. So usually you have a perimeter dust suppression to, knock down any dust before it can leave the regulated area. When you establish the regulated area by OSHA law, we can't have asbestos leave the regulated area.
course.
So that's why the BMPs call for, just a lot of dust suppression. Usually there's a fire hose. If you're digging, there'll be a fire hose usually directed on the excavator bucket.
Is there a certain person that's overlooking just that aspect of things, just to make sure?
Yeah, there has to be what they call an asbestos project monitor on site to oversee the contractors by mass law.
Will the city and different departments be notified as when that work's being done?
Yes, we'll notify you of that.
Thank you.
And, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions. So, on the PCB and the hazardous material, PCBs and that, there's a plan for excavating that material, and that plan has to be approved by,
The EPA would approve the PCB, management of the PCB soils. The asbestos is managed by the state, Bureau of Air and Waste.
okay. And those plans are going to be provided to us as well, the client?
We can provide those. Will be public documents, so we can provide those to the Conservation Commission.
So, and just for my own curiosity, I know in the test pits, I know how far down the test pits were. I don't know how deep the sumps were, but how much earth do you plan, how much earth are you gonna excavate out of there?
I think right now we're looking at 200 to 300 cubic yards. It's not a lot of material coming up.
So it's not, is it 10 feet down?
I think in the deepest we're going behind the building is between 6 to 8 feet in one area. And then probably in the sump area itself, we're looking at probably 2 to 3 feet. Because there is shallow bedrock, there is bedrock out there. So, that's going to be, dictating some of that. But we also have clean borings that show, beyond 6 feet or so where we have the highest impacts. The PCBs were, less than the residential cleanup standards.
So when you take the soil out, does that soil go out for some kind of testing to determine what's in it? Or, if, let's say you got down to 5 feet, would you take a sample of that and send it out and have it tested?
So we wouldn't test the soil going off-site for disposal because it's already been tested. We would collect what we call post-excavation confirmatory samples. The EPA requires us to establish a 5-foot by 5-foot grid to confirm that we achieved the remediation goal. So once we get to targeted depths, we would have to overlay a 5-foot by 5-foot grid, collect the soil samples, submit those to a lab for testing. If they come back clean, the excavation would stop. If they comes back and identifies PCBs above the standard, then we would need to do additional remediation, and that would be an iterative process, as we do that.
That's exactly what I was driving at.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense to me. Just lastly, so it's a demolition project, and you're gonna be, obviously, we're gonna be taking a building down, and we're gonna be digging out earth, and we're gonna be disrupting a lot of things. So what type of rodent control are you planning on putting in place when you do this demolition? Have you given that some thought?
I think at this point, because we haven't seen evidence of rodents there, we don't necessarily have developed a plan yet, but, as part of the bid specs, we would have a contractor requirement to control rodent any nuisance rodent populations.
Okay.
But just to note, because there's no food sources at the buildings, and when we've done the interior works, we don't see any evidence of rodent droppings or anything else like that. We don't anticipate that any rodents are going to be displaced as part of this project.
Well, that's good, so that's real good news.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would ask, because I know that there's landscaping that's involved in this, after the demolition is done, that you do have an integrated pest management plan that's associated with that landscaping that really is comprehensive, and it covers rodent control as well. So that's what I would ask for that.
Okay, because I think the plan's just going to be loaming and seeding and creating a grassy area.
Yeah, but are there any trees that are going to be going in? Are there any types of herbicides or pesticides or any of that that's going to be used? That's what I'm driving at.
Yeah, I don't think the plan would be to have any pesticide or herbicide applications after we restore the site. I don't see the need for that at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to note, just for the record, we did receive, a photo, I guess, of the site, and delineated wetland and delineated, bank of intermittent stream. For the record, I would like to say that, I think we can go forward, obviously, with, if everybody wants to, but I would say that we have not confirmed that delineation.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate that it was put on the plan, but we didn't confirm, we didn't go out and check the flags, so it's not confirmed, but I believe that the project can go forward without confirmation.
All right. Yeah, I know there, I think we're in the site, there was some flagging that was visible along the, different wetlands areas, but yeah, I guess, I guess that's a conservation jurisdiction if you confirm our flagging. I don't think that's what I do, right?
No, I'm just saying that, it's, if somebody else were to buy the property and say that, no, well, you confirmed the delineation out there.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yep.
When we didn't, really, so, just for the record.
Okay.
Aren't those delineations only good for a certain amount of time?
3
I mean,
years.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, and I understand that too, even if you did, confirm it, which you haven't, but then it would only be good for 3 years anyway, right?
Right.
And chances are, between the work that we're doing, and, I mean, I don't anticipate Eversource even, getting, I mean, I don't know what our plan, we don't have plans.
Yeah.
But, and we're not quick to turn properties around, so.
Right, okay.
All right?
All right, yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Before I turn this over to the audience, just a procedural situation. This type of project under our policy, which would be industrial, commercial, we typically would ask for peer review. But I think having looked over and read everything, I think that with all the set of eyes that are going to be looked at and be on-site, I think that waiving that particular procedure would be in order. So if I could have, just to be consistent with procedure and not have somebody say, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, I would entertain a motion that we waive the peer review.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we don't need to worry about peer review. There's going to be plenty of people watching over. So with that said, this is a public meeting. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the matter, if you would sign in and identify yourself to our note taker, and any questions that you have that goes to the applicant, ask through me, please.
Thank you. My name is Bill Papalato, and I'm the city councilor for Ward 2, which is where this is. And I've had a couple of calls from some of the residents that live by there. This is all new to a lot of us. You'll probably hear from others that are going to speak on this as well. But the main concern is safety, obviously. And I think it would be helpful if the folks watching on television and in the audience could maybe get some kind of, how frequently do you do these kind of jobs? And what kind of problems have you run into in the past? And what do you do when things happen? I know there's going to be all eyes on this, and I know it's going to be done as safely as you can, but I think it would be helpful for folks listening in and watching to kind of hear it directly from you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that question.
Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on the matter?
We'll give them a chance to,
Hi, I'm David Fallon. I live at 40 Green Street. I'm the immediate abutter. So my understanding from all these meetings is this is all preliminary. They still have to put the demo out to bid, put the reclamation out to bid and everything. One of my concerns is when all these contracts get submitted and the construction's going to start, it's a very concentrated area there. Eastern Ave is used for the Shamrock School and for the high school, for commuting every day. So I don't know what the plan is, if that's too far ahead, to even bother discussing now. but I'm just concerned about, the construction traffic, the hours of operation, and basically that's it. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to respond to either one?
Yes, I can respond to both of those questions. As far as traffic concerns, work would be conducted Monday through Friday, typically during normal business hours. As part of these projects, we require the contractor to provide a traffic management plan. We also identify the limits of work on the project where, relative to parking, where vehicles can be. Some of the things is when we'll obviously have some trucks going off-site, as we go through, as we have to haul materials off-site, whether it's building materials or contaminated soils, but that is generally governed under a traffic management plan. That's a contractor requirement. So, as part of that, they would have to identify truck routes and so forth. And, if there's, depending on what it is, we can provide a traffic management plan to the city. Usually as part of any demolition project, we have to go through the building department anyways to file those, get those other local permits after, as part of the demolition project. So there's going to be still additional, coordination with other city departments as well relative to traffic. From a safety standpoint, Eversource has a safety program. I think you can probably speak more to it, but, you have to maintain a certain health and safety rating to be an approved Eversource vendor. As far as when we look at construction, we have a lot of different measures in place, and that's going to be include, as we develop the work area, it's going to include a fence to prevent access into the site from trespassers. Some of the other concerns would be relative to tracking off, construction, mud and so forth from trucks or so forth that can leave the site. So, that's why we have truck washes and construction entrances to prevent any tracking of potential contamination off the site. As well, there's going to be perimeter dust monitoring to show that the activities aren't resulting in any unsafe levels of dust leaving the site. So, there's going to be a lot of those risk reduction management procedures in place. When we file what we call a release abatement measure with Mass DEP as well as the EPA cleanup plan, we also have to specify to those decontamination procedures and risk reduction measures that we're going to implement during construction. So, those will be public documents, once we submit those to the various agencies that are going to be public information, but those will also outline all these procedures step by step on what's going to be required to, because we have a performance standard to meet that we can't create any unsafe public health hazards or anything like that, public safety, human health risks as part of this work. So we're going to have to comply with those state and federal regulations to ensure a safe work site.
Terrific, thank you so much.
I ask
Anybody else in the audience? Yes, sir.
Just one other quick question. You were talking about once the building is demoed, you're going to kind of even off the property, landscape it, because you're not going to turn it over right away. So I was wondering, is there a plan for that? Are they just going to, like put grass down and wait until they put it up for sale?
Usually we would just, I think, loam and seed it. I think part of it, what we want to do is we want to be able to do a planting that's going to require low maintenance. Like, we don't want to have to mow every week. So part of that would be, low maintenance vegetation that we need to place out there at the site.
Just natural vegetation.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and as far as, there's no plans currently to, dispose of the property, even though it's considered like excess. I mean, it's the station itself, the building, that is not something that Eversource needs to use anymore. Obviously, we haven't used it since the, 80s, 90s, a long time,
mid-80s, yeah.
so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else in the audience? All right, hearing none, bring it back to the commission. John?
Mr. Chairman, back on to some of the issues brought up by an abutter and Mr. Papalato. Does this go through any other city boards? Does it need to go before city council or planning board?
Demo? No, we don't have to go through any additional approvals. The only thing we have to do is so how the process would work is we'd come in, we'd have to do the abatement. Once we do the abatement, then we would submit a demolition permit. That would have to go through local approval to get that off. And the demo permits, essentially asserts that we did all the abatement, we did all the utility disconnects, and then we can proceed with the demolition itself.
Okay, so you don't have to go to a hearing before any other board, you're just gonna go get your permits, like from the building commission and during those processes?
Yes.
Then the other thing, as well as you mentioned, the dust protection and the traction for the vehicles coming and going. Like the question I had on the asbestos, is that also monitored by a certain person to make sure stuff's not leaving the site, and the dust is controlled where you want it to be?
Yes, usually as this, we would have dust monitors running all through construction, collecting readings. That would be ultimately submitted as part of our Mass DEP reports that we provide all the dust readings. We would also have TRC as licensed site professional would have a licensed site professional representative on site monitoring.
So there's actually eyes on it, that's what I
yeah.
was concerned with. Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I just, Mr. Papalardo asked about, whether we've done this before. Obviously,
That was the other point.
Eversource as a company has done this frequently. TRC is one of our consultants that we've hired. They've worked on several projects like this, one as recent as, this year. So, and I've been at Eversource for about 4.5 years. Before that, I was a consultant, and I have done like similar kind of remediation projects in residential areas. So, and this project is being managed by me, so it's not like something new to me either. So, there's eyes on it of people that have done similar
Have you
things.
experienced any problems?
Well, I certainly understand that it's very challenging to have a construction project, whether it's a building being put up or a building taken down next to you. It's noisy, it's disruptive, it's stressful. And I totally understand that people are gonna have these questions, but unfortunately, it's also stressful and frustrating to have basically a derelict building sitting next to your property either. So this is a temporary thing. It's like, going to have surgery. It's not fun, but as long as it's managed properly by the right people, it should go well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple. I'm glad you brought up the construction entrance. It doesn't give dimensions on that. Is it typically 20 feet wide by 50 feet long or something?
It would, some of that's going to be part of the contractor layout. So we did, I think, show limits of work on the plan. The limits of work would typically be that limits of construction fencing. So that's where we would anticipate construction fencing would be consistent with the limits of work showed on the plan.
But the construction entrance, the gravel?
Oh, the construction entrance, those are going to be generally 10 feet wide. They could be 10 feet long, 20 feet long. It really depends on how much, room we have to put those in. So it's, somewhat's going to be up to the contractor, but generally they're going to be 10 to 15 feet long. They're generally going to be constructed using, some sort of geotextile fabric with, stone on top, and then wheel washes as necessary. For some of this work, when it's actually the asbestos related, they'll actually have a whole wash pad that they have to go through with HEPA filters and so forth, and all the water will have to be collected and managed off-site.
Okay. Yeah, because you're not going to be allowed to bring any soil or whatever onto the roads, right? Pretty much?
No, we cannot have any tracking off-site.
Okay. And then the other thing was, the grading idea. That grade is going to be, from front to back, I think, from Green Street, heading back north, I guess it is, or down Eastern Ave. There's a little difference in grade. The grades are going to be met, right? It's going to be a...
Yeah, and I think some of it where we had to cut and carve out, we'd most likely maintain a 3-to-1 grade, 3-to-1 slope as a maximum. Where the building comes out, if we have some sharp grades, we would try to maintain a maximum of 3-to-1.
Okay.
For steepness, because you start getting too steep and you could deal with significant erosion.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
Is you know, even a 3-to-1 is, you know, it's pushing it, I guess, but.
Yeah, that's kind of a standard, you know, side slope. I know I use that at landfill closure projects I've worked on is a standard 3-to-1 slope with, you know, the right vegetative support layers.
Okay, but it would be no greater than 3-to-1.
No greater than 3-to-1.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question. I see the limit of disturbance is delineated, and I know we've had discussions about cleaning past that. Do you see any plans or ideas of removal or cleaning up the plot on the north side within the 25-foot no disturb, or?
I do not see at this point, I do not see the need to clean up in the 25-foot no disturbance zone.
Okay, okay.
Other than the bridge.
Other than the bridge,
I think that's gonna be a few people.
with a sledgehammer.
Hand carrying or
Yeah.
taking it apart.
That's all I was gonna ask, is, yeah, if you just do it by hand, if you
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
If it's on the
Anybody else?
property, I believe it is, but if it is, we'd like to see it removed.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's on our property, we would like to remove it.
All right, thank you.
So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of, one question and then a follow-up. So, have you done any runoff calculations on that, after the building comes down? And do you expect that runoff is gonna go directly over the site, that it's gonna go down into the wetland area, or is it gonna be directed more to the road?
I think,
have you
I think we know, in the NOI, we did include a stormwater report that does have some of those post demolition runoff calculations. I think, you know, most of it's gonna run to the north towards the wetlands. I would imagine, once you have the vegetation and so forth there, it's gonna be pretty consistent. There shouldn't be an increase. If anything, there should be a decrease, because we're taking out impermeable surfaces at the site. So we should see a net decrease of runoff headed towards the wetland from this project.
Okay. Well, that's good news then.
Yeah. And nothing, you know, and not going to the street. We're not gonna grade it so we get, you know, water running into the street.
Okay. And just the follow-up is just on the overall landscaping plan and what I said about rodent control before. So I am gonna ask for an integrated pest management plan for your landscaping, for any rodent control that goes in. I'd like to see what that plan, I'd like to have a look at that plan, be able to review it, look at any types of reports that come out of that from any of the companies that you happen to use.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, does everybody feel we have enough information? Looking for anything else? Well, with that said, is it your request that we close the public hearing?
Yes, it's our request you close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, under public hearings, is Fairfield Residential. Locus is 316 New Boston Street, DP number 348-0835, and it's a request for amended order of conditions. If there's someone here to speak on, if you would sign in, identify yourself for our note taker.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, okay.
Have to get another pen here. Good evening. My name is Brian McCarthy with R.J. O'Connell and Associates. We're the civil engineers for the project, the Fairfield residential project at 316 New Boston Street. And with me tonight is Tom Liddy from Lucas Environmental, our wetland scientist. for the project. So this request for an amended order of conditions is for regrading and landscaping some areas along the landfill side of the site and also along the northeast corner of the site that is along the municipal boundary with Wilmington. Just gonna grab. So, yeah, so the west side, the landfill side is over here. And we're going to propose some regrading over in this area. And also along the municipal boundary with Wilmington in this area here. The railroad tracks, MBTA railroad tracks are in this location here on the east side. So there's a surplus of soil on the site that the applicant proposes to use for regrading these areas and providing landscaping for additional aesthetics and screening for the residents of the project. And if you recall, we submitted this as we requested a minor amendment. We submitted it last November. And at that December meeting of the commission, you had told us that this work would need to be submitted as a request for an amendment to the order of conditions. So this is our amendment request. And also at the previous modification that we submitted in November, we had included a request to fill the non-regulated isolated wetland located near the landfill in this area here. At that meeting, the commission here made it clear to us that that will not be approved by this commission. So we went back and we revised the plan, and this plan is the revised plan that shows no work occurring within that isolated vegetated wetland. We're going to regrade around the perimeter of that, similar to what was in the original approval. But the difference here is we're going to raise that grade approximately 4 to 5 feet, right in this area here, right in here. So there'll be no work within that isolated vegetated wetland area. That area, the regrading of that area then would be loamed and seeded with a native flowering meadow mix, which again was part of the original plan for that area. But in addition to that, we're going to plant some trees and shrubs as well for additional aesthetics and screening in that area. Also, along the landfill side, we have the ball courts over here, the dog park over here. And in this area here, we had a berm there proposed on the original design. And what we're proposing here is to raise that berm, and it ranges in an additional height of between 2 and 5 feet in here from what we had proposed before. And again, that area would then be seeded with that same native meadow seed mix. And we would add some more plant trees and shrubs on that berm. The other area that we were looking at regrading is on the north portion of the site, along that municipal boundary line, which is right here. And along this side of the site, between the drive aisle here and the railroad tracks. In this area here, we had, that was all proposed to be regraded as part of the original application. And again, on this one, we're regrading it to raise the grade in that area probably between about 2 and 4 feet in that area. This is located along this isolated vegetated wetland here. And also, that works within the outer 100-foot buffer of the intermittent stream that runs along the railroad tracks. So that area would be regraded a little bit higher than what it was proposed before. We had proposed in that area trees, and they will be planted on this area in this proposal as well, with the loam and seed mix. We are also, on the Wilmington side of the site, in this area here, this is an area we're regrading as well to raise that grade up and also plant trees and shrubs on that. We did, and that's in Wilmington, and so we went to the Wilmington Conservation Commission, we submitted an application to them, and actually at their meeting yesterday, we were at their meeting yesterday, they approved that work within that area there. So we got their approval last night. And obviously, as part of this work, you know, we have the erosion and sediment controls in place. They will continue to be maintained and remain in place until all this is stabilized. The additional trees and shrubs that we're going to plant in this area consist of eastern white pine, some Norway spruce, dogwood, and some sumac shrubs. So that's pretty much an overview of what this amendment request is about. Happy to,
Any questions from the commission?
I had a couple, and I'm glad you kind of brought up, how did Wilmington, was that just a minor change for them? Did you?
so we submitted a request for determination of applicability, and they approved it under that.
Okay. And then the only other thing I had was, it looks like you've got erosion controls going through that isolated vegetative wetland that's up here, like around flags G25, G26, and G66 and 65.
Along here?
Yeah, it's up in there. If you, do you have the erosion control plan, by the way?
I do, yes. These, by the way, as part, in your packet, you got these landscaping plans as well, so
Yep.
I have these here.
Yeah, right there.
I'm going to go to this one. So let's see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. There it is. Okay, so you're talking along that area right there?
Probably in there, yeah, but
So,
is
yeah.
that the new, that doesn't look like the new plan, the C1C that we have?
Yes, this is the plan that was submitted.
Okay. Is this, you see what I'm looking at this here?
Let me just check, yeah, so this is the 1212,
That's
well, C1D, okay.
Yep, okay.
Do you want to see the C1C?
Yeah,
All right, let me go. Ah. Okay, so C1C,
yep. So you see right there, the erosion controls, why would they be
right
going?
there?
Yep,
Oh, sorry, so, if you recall, I'm gonna go back to 2022. We had come in front of you because there's a hydrant out there. And when we were doing the demolition work, the fire department wanted that to be able to access that hydrant and, because it is active. And that was, we had come before you at the time to request that change in the erosion sediment controls to allow us to go around that hydrant. With the understanding, and it was in the letter we submitted back then and approved, was with the understanding that when this is all done, we're going to restore that area
okay,
back to the the previous condition.
okay, yeah,
Is that the same hydrant that we saw our very first
Yes.
sidewalk?
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if Teresa, would you need copies of any of the Wilmington Conservation Commission paperwork that they approved for your files?
I do not.
Okay,
I
just
mean, if they want to send it,
I
they
didn't know
can,
if you
but,
would need it or anything.
no, I mean, they're required, the burden is on them to make sure that they get all the permits that they need to have, and
All right.
We're happy to give you a copy.
I just didn't know if she would need it, so.
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so just one quick question and a comment. So first, I appreciate you protecting that isolated vegetated wetland. Thank you. The question I have is, you talked about increasing the grade and the height of that grade. Is that different from what we talked about at the last meeting? Is that an additional change on top of that? Or was that always in the plan to change that?
In the original design, yes. We were regrading that area in the original design.
Okay.
This does propose to raise it some more,
Okay.
by between about 4 feet or so.
Is there any impact to the runoff ability in that?
So the runoff,
Erosion ability, or the erosion in that?
no, so that's a 3-to-1 slope that we're proposing there. And then, so the runoff in that area, under the existing condition, before we started doing the work out there,
Yeah.
the wetland area here was low, so any runoff on this side was coming into that wetland, and then the runoff off the landfill was coming into that area. Then what happens is the grade actually slopes this way, around here. So if you got a large storm event and this started to fill up, it would start to go around this way. So we're not changing any watersheds or runoffs in relation to that.
All right, thank you.
Just a quick question, based on something that Jim had just mentioned, with the higher slopes that you're proposing, the potential for a little more erosion, will there be a little more monitoring time for the restoration of all the seed and plantings you put in?
Yeah,
Make sure they take.
definitely. I mean, again, we will seed this with that meadow mix and the plantings, and, our erosion and sediment controls are going to remain in place until everything is fully stabilized. We're also, as you might be aware, for a site like this, we also have filed for the NPDES permit under EPA, and we have to do the SWIP monitoring and inspection. We're also doing weekly reports to the Conservation Office as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak?
No.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any last comments, questions?
Just a comment, I think just given that the purpose of the project hasn't changed, the scope hasn't increased, and there won't be any adverse impacts with these changes, I really believe that we can consider this as an amendment.
Everybody in agreement?
I would agree.
I would agree to that, Mr. Chairman, if I may too, and I do appreciate the cooperation of you
This is a public
taking in the
hearing.
comments.
Is it your request that we close the public hearing?
Yes, we would request that you close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Teresa, do you want to act on the,
The commission has a draft to act on.
Yep.
has everybody had a chance to look at the draft? I think
It's-
Teresa highlighted most of the,
Yeah, there is, for pages 11 and 12, you'll see the page that's stamped final draft is the one you should be looking at. Made some changes. I had asked Mr. McCarthy to to just review the plans, just because I wanted to make sure I had all the right ones referenced. So just for clarity, what I'm suggesting is that under documents, item number 2, that we just leave in the word removed, so that people will know that that document reference is removed, and then to put in What I have is 13 and 14 under documents. So 13 is basically the letter requesting the amended order of conditions and the supporting information, and then 14 is the site plans all referenced that should be part of this order. The only other changes really to the order, I think, was findings, added finding number 9, just to make it clear that the amended order of conditions completely replaces the order of conditions issued by the Conservation Commission September 16, 2021, which was extended by an extension permit until September 16, 2027, and further extended by Chapter 238 of the Acts of 2024 until September 16, 2029. So that is the expiration date for this order. And then the only other thing is on condition 21, to add the word amended, so that every time that we reference order/permit, it means the amended order. So that's the draft.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue the amended order of conditions as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you, appreciate.
Thank you, Jerry.
I never noticed that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, under public hearings, we have James Waterman, GR Development, locus is 325 Montreal Ave, notice of intent DP number 348-0878 for site redevelopment for a car wash. And we have a written request to withdraw the applicant's request for a notice of intent.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the applicant's request to withdraw.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Terrific. Moving on to business items, we have draft order for the minutes of December 19th, 2024. I don't think I made any notations. Nope. Any discussion, any
I just had one
changes?
change. The word was spelt right, but I think it's the wrong word. So it's under the informal discussion, maybe almost halfway down the paragraph, under Mr. Burkholz, that next line, because of the musty, it should be odor and not order.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
That's all I had.
good catch.
Spell check doesn't get that.
That's why I said it's spelt right.
They don't catch things like that.
No.
Sometimes they show like highlight because the grammar, it
Right.
doesn't make sense.
It
but
didn't catch that one.
No.
We need Jerry for that one.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the meeting minutes of December 19th, 2024 as drafted and amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I guess we can come back to B after we talk about C, which is South Bedford Road, which I think we talked about at the last meeting, and we said before they would go ahead and do any cutting, we wanted the trees flagged.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I've spoken with the homeowner.
Okay.
And right now, he's going to be putting that off for a while. He's got some other things going on. He apologized, actually, for not flagging the trees as to, what he exactly wanted to do with them. So he said when he's ready to go, probably in the spring sometime or after, he's going to let us know, and he'll have the trees, ribboned off with whatever the requests are.
Okay.
So I will take it off the agenda until we hear back from the applicant.
Yep.
All right.
All right, moving on. We have a minor change to plan at 183 Lexington Street, Lot 2, DP number 348-0879. Was there somebody going to come in and,
No. So
any discussion?
the area that they're looking to change on the plan is outside of the riverfront area. It's also outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but it is within the 150. And it's the driveway, I believe.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the change as minor.
I'll second that. Need the motion?
Okay, we have a second by Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against, any abstentions? Terrific. Now we go back to sidewalk, seeing how 16 Bedford is off the charts. Is there anything, Teresa, that we should know of, or?
I don't have any others.
Okay, so at this time, we don't need to schedule any site walks. Is there anything else before the commission? I'd just like to say, Friends of Horn Pond through Jim, Monday night had a little session on making the residents of Woburn aware of the coyotes. The presentation was done by Dan Prue. He did a terrific job. It was very informative. I think that if more people could attend those types of things, the city would be better off because, according to this expert, because we're taller and bigger than they are, they're more afraid of us than we are of them. And we should take advantage of that, and that way they will stay away from us and amongst themselves, which I think is probably a good thing. But anyway, Jim, Friends of Horn Pond, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for, that was a good, it was a good presentation. Dan's a friend of mine for quite a long time. So, yeah, I thought it was really informative. I was pretty happy about that. I will add this, just a plug for the next one. On February 4th at 6:30, it's a Tuesday night, we have, the event is called From Snowy Owls to Sawwood Owls, and it's being presented by Norman Smith from Mass Audubon. And Norman is the director of the Snowy Owl Project for Mass Audubon. He's also one of the two folks that reintroduced the bald eagles and peregrine falcons to Massachusetts in 1985. So it's in the Woburn Public Library. It'd be a real good show.
Very good.
What time is that, Jim?
6:30. It's free, open to the public, all ages.
If it's anything like the Coyotes, it was well worth it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it should be a good one.
So, with that said,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Opposed.
Thank you all. Happy New Year.
New Year.